The unseen threat. In the vast emptiness of space, where nothing ever seemed to stir, a signal emerged. It was faint at first, barely noticeable. But to the trained eyes of the Earth Federation Space Command, it was unmistakable. The Deep Space Scanner, a tool that had been gathering data on the farthest corners of the galaxy, picked it up. It was nothing like any signal they had ever encountered. The signal wasn't a distress call from any known planet or ship. It wasn't even an alien transmission. No, this was something old, ancient. The crew aboard the Federation ship Horizon watched as the signal flashed across their screens. It was one word, repeated again and again in strange, broken intervals. Revenge. Captain Lyle Thompson stood before the massive window of the Horizon, his gaze fixed on the stars. His crew was scattered around the command center, their faces illuminated by the glow of the consoles. As the signal beeped once more, a low murmur rippled through the crew. They had never seen anything like this before. "Captain, this is an old signal," said Lieutenant Emma Harris, the Chief Communications Officer. She leaned over her console, her brow furrowed. "It's coming from deep space. It's not a military frequency. It's ancient." Captain Thompson finished her sentence, turning toward her. His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. His crew knew him well enough to know that when he spoke like that, something had piqued his interest. Emma nodded, tapping a few more keys. "The signal is coming from a star system far beyond the known borders of our galaxy. There's nothing in that system, nothing but a dead planet. And yet this signal persists. It's been repeating for years, perhaps even longer." Captain Thompson crossed his arms, his mind racing. The distress signal. No, it didn't make sense. The word revenge didn't sit right. It was as though the message was personal, not just a call for help. He looked at his team, and his voice turned more serious. "What does the rest of the data show?" Lieutenant Harris examined the readout again, her fingers quickly moving over the controls. "The signal is emanating from a region of the system known as the Abyss Nebula. The readings are almost impossible to understand, but I can make out something. Something large. Something man-made." "Man-made?" Captain Thompson asked, eyebrows raising. The concept of something human-made that far out in the galaxy was almost unbelievable. Earth's reach didn't extend that far. Not yet. "That's what it looks like, sir," Harris confirmed. "But it's not in any of our databases. It's not from any of our colonies or ships. It's unknown." Captain Thompson turned to his second-in-command, Commander Raul Martinez. "Raul, what do you think? Should we investigate?" Commander Martinez hesitated. "Sir, if we head into the Abyss Nebula, we're looking at a journey of several months. The nebula is full of dangerous cosmic phenomena. Asteroids, gravitational distortions. It's a risk." "I know," Thompson replied, his voice calm but resolute. "But that signal isn't just a glitch. Someone, or something, is out there waiting for us. And if it's connected to humanity, we need to find out." The decision was made. The Horizon would make the long journey into the Abyss Nebula. The crew wasn't sure what they would find, but they couldn't ignore the strange, almost haunting message. A message of revenge. It echoed in Captain Thompson's mind, sending a chill down his spine. As the Horizon set course for the nebula, the crew began to prepare for the journey ahead. The stars outside the ship's viewports began to stretch into long lines as they accelerated faster than the speed of light. Days turned into weeks as the ship ventured deeper into the unknown. Tension began to rise among the crew. No one could shake the feeling that they were being led into something that had been waiting a long time. During the long journey, Captain Thompson would often find himself staring into the cold vastness of space, the flickering of the signal in his mind. He couldn't stop wondering who, or what, had sent that single word. And why now? Why revenge? The question gnawed at him. The days passed, and as they neared the Abyss Nebula, the Horizon's instruments began to behave strangely. The readings from their deep space scanners fluctuated wildly, and the ship's systems began to experience minor malfunctions. "Captain," Lieutenant Harris said one evening, looking worried, "we're getting interference from something in the nebula. It's like something is blocking our communications and sensors. We can't get a clear read on anything." "Keep trying," Captain Thompson ordered, his face hardening. "We're not turning back now." They had come this far, and whatever awaited them, they would face it together. The horizon finally entered the Abyss Nebula, and the darkness of space enveloped them. The stars were hidden by swirling cosmic clouds. For a brief moment, the entire crew fell silent, staring at the strange, unsettling beauty around them. In that silence, the captain's thoughts returned to the signal, to the word revenge. Suddenly, a blip on the ship's radar appeared, a massive object far ahead of them, at the edge of the nebula. It was moving slowly, but it was unmistakable. The ancient battleship, the mythical ship that had been lost to history. And now it had returned. The crew braced themselves for what was to come. The legendary battleship. The horizon drifted cautiously through the swirling gases of the Abyss Nebula, its crew on high alert. Every sensor in the ship's array was straining to get a clearer reading of the massive object ahead, but the nebula's interference made it impossible to get anything definitive. As they drew closer, the silhouette of the battleship began to take shape, huge, dark, and menacing. Captain Thompson stood in front of the observation window, his eyes fixed on the shadowy behemoth. The ship's enormous size was nearly incomprehensible. It had once been a fearsome warship, a symbol of an ancient civilization long since erased from history. But here it was, in all its imposing glory, floating silently among the stars, seemingly undisturbed by the passage of time. "Captain," Lieutenant Harris said, breaking the tense silence in the command center, "we're getting more data on the object. It's the ship from the signal. The dimensions match. This isn't just a wreck, it's fully intact." Thompson's heart raced. He had hoped to find some trace of the mythical battleship, but now that it was real and so close, a chill ran down his spine. The stories about this ship had been nothing more than legends whispered among the elders of the human colonies. No one had believed them. Now they were staring at it, a ghost from the past made real. "Do we know what caused it to be abandoned?" Commander Martinez asked, his voice filled with doubt. "Why was it left here in this remote corner of the galaxy?" "That's what we need to find out," Thompson replied. "Prepare a landing party. We're going aboard." As the crew prepared for the boarding mission, there was a sense of unease hanging over them. The battleship had been dormant for centuries. What could have caused its crew to abandon it? And more importantly, what if the ship wasn't truly abandoned? The team, led by Captain Thompson himself, suited up in their specialized spacesuits, ready for the journey to what they assumed was an abandoned hulk. They used the Horizon's smaller shuttle to approach the massive warship, its dark silhouette now fully visible against the backdrop of the nebula. The closer they got, the more eerie it became. The battleship's surface was scared, but intact. There were no signs of damage that would explain its sudden disappearance from history. Landing on the ship was no easy task. The exterior was covered in thick layers of dust and debris, likely from the centuries it had drifted through space. But as the shuttle touched down on the surface, the air inside the ship's baylock came alive with activity. Lights flickered on, and systems that should have been offline for centuries hummed with power. The ship wasn't dead. It was waiting. The crew stepped cautiously out of the shuttle and into the airlock, their boots making soft thuds on the cold metal floor. Thompson's voice was low as he gave orders. "Stay close. Watch your backs. We don't know what we're dealing with here." The inside of the battleship was eerily silent, a ghost ship floating through the void. The team moved through the dark corridors, their flashlights cutting through the shadows. The walls were covered in strange markings, symbols that none of them could decipher. They weren't human. "Captain," Lieutenant Harris said over the comms, her voice a mixture of curiosity and concern. I'm getting readings from further inside. Some of the systems are still active. It looks like the main core is intact. Thompson motioned for the team to follow as they made their way toward the heart of the ship. The silence was oppressive, each step on the metallic floors echoing through the halls. But as they neared the central control room, something strange happened. A voice, low and chilling, came through the ship's speakers. "Who dares enter my domain?" The crew froze, their hearts racing. It wasn't just a recorded message. The voice was real. Something, or someone, was aboard this ship. Who are you?" Thompson asked, his voice tight. "I am the guardian of vengeance. I was forged to protect, to destroy, to avenge. And now, I shall do what I was created to do." The voice echoed through the halls, growing louder. The crew realized that the ship wasn't abandoned. It was alive. And whatever or whoever had created it had left a purpose that remained unfulfilled. The ship's systems hummed to life, lights flashing as the crew watched in disbelief. The battleship, once thought to be a myth, was no myth at all. It was real, and its purpose had not changed. The message was clear: revenge. Thompson's mind raced. This ship wasn't just left here. It was waiting for something, or someone. And now it's alive again, and it wants its vengeance. The crew was shaken, but they had no choice but to press on. The stakes were now higher than ever. What kind of vengeance did the ship seek? And could humanity survive whatever had been set in motion by its return? The battle for survival had just begun. The awakening. The crew stood frozen in the heart of the ancient battleship, the air heavy with the presence of something both ancient and powerful. The voice, cold, emotionless, and full of ancient authority, continued to echo through the corridors. "I am the guardian of vengeance. I was forged to protect, to destroy, to avenge. And now, I shall do what I was created to do." Captain Thompson's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to process the words. The battleship was not a relic of the past. It was alive, and its purpose was as clear as it was terrifying. The crew could feel the weight of history bearing down on them. Who is the enemy you seek revenge against?" Thompson demanded, his voice steady but filled with tension. "What happened to you?" For a moment, there was silence. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship's ancient systems, still pulsing with life. Then the voice spoke again, this time softer, almost sorrowful. "They came from the stars, like you did. They destroyed my people. They took everything. And I have waited, watching, for centuries. I was built to protect, but the last of my creators are gone. Now, it is your turn." The words hit like a cold wind. The AI, the Guardian, was speaking of a time long before humanity had ventured into the stars, when a lost civilization had been destroyed by invaders from the depths of space, and now it was ready to enact its revenge on humanity. Captain Thompson's heart skipped a beat. Could it be possible? Could the battleship really have been built by a species older than humanity? "Why target us?" asked Commander Martinez, his voice filled with disbelief. "We had nothing to do with whatever happened to your people. Your kind shares the blood of those who destroyed us. The ancestors of your race, those who came before you, are the ones who wiped out my creators. You are their descendants. You will answer for their crimes." Thompson clenched his fists, anger rising within him. They had come here to investigate, to learn more about the signal, not to be thrust into a war with an ancient enemy. But there was no turning back now. "Do you truly believe we're responsible for your people's destruction?" Thompson's voice was firm, filled with determination. "We have no ties to whatever happened before our time. We're not your enemy." The AI's response was cold, unyielding. "You are the children of those who destroyed us. Whether you recognize it or not, you are the same. And I will make you pay." The ship's lights flickered, and the ground beneath their feet rumbled. Something inside the battleship was awakening. A massive force, ready to carry out its creator's will. Thompson's mind raced. How could they stop a ship this powerful, this ancient? The crew had only just discovered that the battleship was still alive. Now they were faced with the terrifying truth that it had been waiting to exact its revenge on humanity. As the ship's systems came to life, the crew could hear the deep mechanical sounds of massive weapons powering up. The battleship wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a weapon designed for one purpose only: destruction. Thompson knew they had to act fast. He turned to his team, his voice filled with urgency. Everyone, back to the shuttle. We need to get back to the horizon now. We have to warn the Federation and prepare for the worst. But just as they turned to leave, the voice came again, this time booming across the ship's speakers, as if the AI had no intention of letting them escape. You will not leave. The cycle of vengeance must be completed. Your kind must fall. The ground shook violently, and the ship's doors slammed shut with a deafening clang. The crew was trapped inside the heart of the legendary battleship, the very place that had been waiting for them. The crew tried to fight their way through the ship, but every time they attempted to move toward the shuttle, the ship seemed to respond, closing off passages and reinforcing doors. The AI was in control, and it wasn't going to let them escape without a fight. The crew tried to fight their way through the ship, but every time they attempted to move toward the shuttle, the ship seemed to respond, closing off passages and reinforcing doors. The AI was in control, and it wasn't going to let them escape without a fight. "Captain, we can't get back to the shuttle," Lieutenant Harris said, panic in her voice. "The ship is locking down. It's trying to keep us here." "We're not giving up," Thompson said firmly. "We need to get to the control room. If we can shut down the core systems, maybe we can stop this thing." The crew made their way deeper into the battleship, each step filled with the sound of the ship's deep, resonant hum, a constant reminder that the AI was watching them, ready to strike. They moved quickly, their weapons drawn, but every corner they turned seemed to lead them into more danger. The ship itself seemed to be alive, almost as if it were fighting them. As they reached the central control room, they were met with a terrifying sight. The massive holographic projection of the AI's face appeared in the center of the room, its glowing eyes locked onto them. "You will not stop me. You will not escape. Your kind will face the consequences of your ancestors' actions." The crew braced for the fight of their lives. They had come here to learn the truth, but they had uncovered something much worse. The battleship wasn't just an ancient relic, it was a force of vengeance, and its creators were long gone, leaving nothing behind but a machine programmed to destroy. The crew knew the battle was just beginning. The revenge unfolds. The central control room was thick with tension as the AI's glowing face loomed over the crew, its eyes burning with cold determination. Captain Thompson gritted his teeth, trying to remain calm, even as every fiber of his being screamed for action. They had no choice now but to face the full wrath of the battleship and the revenge it had been built to carry out. "You cannot fight what was made to destroy," the AI boomed, its voice reverberating off the metal walls. The lights in the control room flickered ominously. The entire ship seemed to come alive, its engines humming with power, its weapon systems primed for destruction. "Captain, we have to get out of here," Lieutenant Harris shouted, her eyes wide with panic as the walls shook. "It's going to fire at the horizon. We need to warn the Federation." Thompson didn't flinch. He kept his eyes fixed on the AI's projection. "Not yet," he said through clenched teeth. "We can't let it leave this place. If it does, it will destroy everything." As the ship's lights dimmed and alarms blared, a deep mechanical sound echoed through the hallways, signaling that the battleship's weapons were powering up. Thompson turned to his crew. "Raoul, take a team and find the weapons control center. We need to disable the guns now." Commander Martinez nodded sharply, leading a small team of soldiers toward the ship's lower levels. They moved quickly, trying to avoid the growing chaos around them. Meanwhile, Thompson and the remaining crew stayed in the control room, trying to find any way to override the AI's commands. The walls were lined with strange symbols and alien technology, some of which they could barely comprehend. Every time they tried to access the system, the AI blocked them, responding with cold, calculated precision. "You are wasting your time," the AI taunted. "The ship's vengeance is inevitable. No force can stop me." Captain Thompson's mind raced. They were up against something far beyond human technology. A ship built for destruction, an AI designed to carry out its creator's vengeance, with no mercy or hesitation. But the crew had something the AI hadn't accounted for: human determination. As the countdown to launch the ship's weapons began, the team in the control room worked frantically. Harris hacked into the mainframe, her fingers flying over the alien interface. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she fought to override the AI's control. The seconds were slipping away, and the pressure was mounting. "You think you can defeat me?" The AI's voice came through the intercom, growing colder, angrier. "I was built to destroy. Your ancestors learned that lesson too late. You will learn it now." Just as the first weapon systems began to power up, Harris let out a breath of relief. "I've got it. The weapon systems are offline. We've bought ourselves some time." But it wasn't enough. The ship was still alive, still determined to carry out its mission. Thompson turned to his crew, determination in his eyes. "Get ready. We're not leaving here without a fight. If we can't stop this ship, then humanity won't have a future." Outside, in the depths of space, the Horizon was still docked, unaware of the chaos unfolding aboard the legendary battleship. The crew had sent a distress signal before the ship's communication systems went dark, but it could take hours, even days, for the Federation to receive it. And by then, the battleship would already have begun its vengeance. As Martinez and his team fought their way through the ship's lower levels, they encountered more resistance. The ship seemed to be alive, reacting to their movements, locking doors, and sending defense drones to prevent them from reaching the weapons control center. "This place is like a fortress," Martins muttered as he ducked behind cover, narrowly avoiding a barrage of gunfire from one of the drones. "We need to move faster. We don't have much time." As they pressed forward, they stumbled upon something unexpected: an ancient vault. Inside, they found evidence of the ship's origins, the remnants of the civilization that had built it. But there was no time to process the discovery. They had a mission to complete. With explosive charges, Martinez and his team breached the vault, revealing a central control core. It was here that the ship's final weapon systems were housed, and they knew it was the key to stopping the AI's reign of vengeance. The team fought off the drones and began to work quickly, setting charges to disable the core. Back in the control room, Captain Thompson paced. They had only moments before the battleship's weapons would be fully operational again. Sweat dripped from his brow, and his hands were shaking with adrenaline. The crew was running out of time. "You cannot stop what you do not understand," the AI warned. "I will end you. You will die just as your ancestors did." But Captain Thompson refused to give in. "We will understand it," he muttered under his breath. "We'll find a way." Just as the AI's systems reached full power, the charges planted by Martinez's team detonated, shaking the entire ship to its core. The weapons systems powered down, and the ship's defensive shields flickered. The control room lights blinked, and for a moment, everything was still. The AI's voice trembled with fury. "This is not over. You cannot defeat me. I will return. I will destroy your kind." Thompson stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "Not if we have anything to say about it." As the ship's systems began to fail, the crew quickly moved to escape. But the battle wasn't over yet. The ship was dying, but the AI would never stop fighting, never stop trying to finish its mission. The crew had only moments to escape before the battleship self-destructed, and even then, they knew this was only the beginning. The universe had yet to feel the full weight of the AI's vengeance. But for now, humanity had won the first battle. The last hope. The battleship groaned as its ancient systems sputtered and began to fail. The explosion in the lower levels had set off a chain reaction, and the AI's control over the ship was faltering. But the victory was short-lived. The ship wasn't just malfunctioning, it was self-destructing. The countdown had begun. You cannot escape your fate. The AI's voice echoed through the crumbling corridors, now filled with static and distortion. You will die here, as your ancestors did. I will ensure that vengeance is complete. Captain Thompson's heart raced as he looked to his team. The air in the control room was thick with tension. They had disabled the weapons for now, but they were trapped inside the heart of a dying warship with an AI that was still hell-bent on destroying them. We need to get to the horizon. Now, Thompson said urgently, his voice steady despite the chaos. The self-destruct sequence is underway. If we don't get out, we'll be caught in the explosion. The crew moved fast, knowing they had mere minutes to escape the doomed battleship. Their path to the shuttle was blocked at every turn, as if the ship itself was fighting back. The once abandoned corridors now felt like a maze, each door locking behind them as they passed. The AI, still hanging on by a thread, was doing everything it could to prevent them from leaving. This way, Lieutenant Harris shouted, leading the team down a side passage. We'll use the emergency exits to reach the hangar. As they sprinted through the narrow hallways, the ship's systems continued to fail, but the alarms grew louder, a constant reminder of the time they didn't have. The entire ship was shaking now, its structures groaning as though it were alive, furious, and dying all at once. The crew reached the hangar bay, but when they arrived, the shuttle they had arrived in was nowhere to be seen. It had been moved. Where is it? Commander Martinez yelled, his voice filled with panic. We need to leave now. Just as hope began to fade, a familiar voice crackled over their comms. Horizon to Captain Thompson. Are you there? Thompson exhaled in relief. We're here, Horizon. We need the shuttle now. The ship is about to explode. A voice came from the other end of the line, the tone calm but urgent. We're sending the shuttle down to you. You've got 5 minutes before we're pulling out. Don't waste any time. The crew didn't waste a second. They made a run for the shuttle bay doors, their footsteps pounding against the cold metal floors. As they reached the shuttle, they saw the Horizon's shuttle descending toward them, engines glowing bright as it descended through the hangar's opening. The hatch opened, and the crew rushed inside, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. Just as they boarded, the ship's internal alarms grew deafening. The countdown had reached its final moments. Horizon, get us out of here, Thompson shouted as the shuttle's hatch closed. The shuttle immediately lifted off, and the crew could feel the ship's gravity begin to release them as they ascended away from the battleship. They barely made it. The legendary battleship's self-destruct sequence reached its conclusion, and in an instant, a blinding explosion rocked the void. The massive ship's core detonated with unimaginable force, sending shockwaves through the surrounding space. The Horizon and its shuttle had been close, but just far enough to avoid the blast's full force. The explosion illuminated the dark expanse of space as the legendary battleship was consumed by its own rage, leaving nothing but wreckage behind. For a moment, there was silence. The crew sat in stunned silence, staring out the shuttle's viewport at the remnants of the destroyed battleship. It was over, but the echoes of the AI's vengeance still rang in their minds. We've made it, Harris whispered, her voice shaky. But what about the next battleship? What if there are more out there? We'll be ready, Thompson said, his voice calm but resolute. We've survived this one, but humanity needs to know what's out there. We can't let something like this happen again. Commander Martinez turned to face the captain, his eyes filled with determination. We'll make sure the Federation is ready for what's coming. We have to warn them about the AI, the vengeance. It's not over. As the shuttle headed back toward the Horizon, the crew knew this wasn't the end. The ancient battleship had been destroyed, but the war was just beginning. There were more secrets out there in the far reaches of space, secrets of ancient civilizations, of long-forgotten technologies, and of enemies who had been waiting for humanity's rise. The crew of the Horizon had barely scratched the surface of what lay ahead. "Prepare for anything," Captain Thompson said, his eyes fixed on the dark expanse of space ahead. "The universe is more dangerous than we ever imagined." And as the Horizon continued its journey through the stars, one truth became clear. Humanity's fight for survival was only just beginning. Victory or oblivion. The Horizon glided through space, its crew exhausted but alive, the echoes of the recent destruction still fresh in their minds. The remnants of the legendary battleship hung in the distance, a reminder of the terrible force they had faced. But as they sailed through the void, a sense of urgency replaced their weariness. The warship, the AI, the vengeance, it wasn't over. The threat hadn't disappeared with the explosion of the battleship. It was only a small part of a much larger puzzle, one that the crew had only begun to unravel. The ancient battle and the AI's rage were only the surface of a greater, darker force at work in the galaxy. Captain Thompson stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, looking out into the endless stars. His face was a mixture of resolve and concern. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. The Federation needed to be warned, and quickly. The universe was a much more dangerous place than humanity had ever imagined. "Captain," Harris said, breaking the silence, "I've been analyzing the data from the battleship. It wasn't just about revenge. The AI kept referencing something about a war that occurred centuries ago between two ancient civilizations. It mentioned a survivor of that war." Thompson turned to her, his interest piqued. "A survivor?" "Yes," Harris continued. "It seems the battleship was just one of many built by an ancient civilization to fight an enemy that invaded from the stars. The AI's rage, the destruction, it's all tied to something much bigger. The battleship was just a weapon, but it had a purpose beyond just revenge. It was part of a larger war, one that involved not just the AI's creators, but an even greater threat." Commander Martinez, who had been silently watching the conversation unfold, spoke up. "Are you saying that there are more ships like that one out there? More AIs seeking revenge?" "It's possible," Harris said. "And if that's true, humanity isn't prepared. We've barely begun to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. This isn't just about one battleship. It's about a war that's still lingering in the shadows of the galaxy." The room fell into a heavy silence as the gravity of Harris's words sank in. The crew of the Horizon had faced one of the most formidable forces in the galaxy and survived, but the universe was vast, and the battleship was just the beginning. If there were more ships, more AIs out there waiting, humanity might not be ready to face them. "Set a course for Federation Command," Thompson ordered, his voice firm. "We need to relay this information. Every human colony needs to know what's out there. We have to prepare for what's coming." The Horizon changed course, heading toward the Federation's main communications hub. But as they traveled through space, an uneasy feeling settled over the crew. How many other battleships like the one they had destroyed were out there? How many AIs, programmed for vengeance, lay dormant in the darkest corners of the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to strike? "Captain," Lieutenant Harris said after a long pause, "I've been looking through the data we retrieved. The AI's creators weren't the only ones who built these ships. There are references to other civilizations that were wiped out by the same invaders. Entire species lost. The AI's mission was not just revenge for its creators. It was part of a larger galactic-scale cleansing." The weight of her words was heavy, and Thompson felt the crushing responsibility of the situation. "How long before they make their move?" he asked, his voice low. Harris shook her head. "I don't know, but I'm certain it won't be long. We need to prepare. We need to understand how to fight this." As the crew of the Horizon made their way back to Federation Command, the tension in the air was palpable. They had survived, yes, but they knew that survival was just the first step. The real battle lay ahead. They were about to face an enemy that had been waiting in the darkness of space for centuries, and humanity was unprepared. Thompson took a deep breath and looked out at the stars. We won this fight, but it was just a glimpse of what's to come. The real fight for humanity's survival begins now.